Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Gleberman, and you're listening to Silence on Set podcast. I'm going to start with you. For Chloe, she's a high-powered professional. She's very in control. She's very specific about what people think about her, but she starts unraveling, obviously, as stuff starts going on throughout the show. How were you able to balance the unraveling? Because it's so tight and close into her, but it's so obvious that it's going on. So how did you do that? It was so good.
Thank you. I mean, I think a lot of that got established with Craig Gillespie, who directed our pilot episode. And honestly, he constantly asked me to just keep it really, really contained. And every time I would kind of fight against that a little bit. I think trying to think about sort of like a regular audience member, a normal person, a mom, somebody watching this, would I be able to connect with them? Would they be able to follow this character's experience if I was so contained? But he was right. He wanted that containment at the very beginning. So then, you start to see just the tiny, tiny changes, the little things physically happening, the way that her sister is affecting her on every level of her life and how she's just being broken open on, so many different like aspects. So it was a tightrope walk, all day, every day. How far can we go? How much do we want to share and, emote? And how much do I need to hold back? And, luckily we had great directors and everybody was supportive and we just kind of walked that path until we got it right.
And then Elizabeth, for you, I have so much fun watching Nikki because it could be more opposite, right? Which is so sister-like. She's just crazy and loud and messy and, contradicting herself, but but she's so loving. So was that difficult for you to embody? How did you balance those emotions?
I mean, I think I'm closer to Nikki than people realize. I think being somebody who is free to say their truth. And I also really like having something to play. And what this character Nikki gets to play the entire time is annoy the shit out of your sister. And it's really fun. That's actually a really fun thing to play. And it's like, I have to break her down so that she becomes open and available to the truth that I'm going to have to lay on her eventually. And I feel like that starts the minute she shows up. And I also know I'm keeping secrets from her. Like, I am speaking to Ethan. I know what's going on in their house. Like, she doesn't know what I know. And so it's a lot easier for me to be messy and poke at her and try to break her facade because I'm also like, I know you and you're not better than me. And we have this shared history. And the minute you can get your head out of your ass to listen to what I have to say, we're going to get closer. And so I'm just like kind of forcing the issue with you at all times. And that's really fun to play.
Yeah. And it's great to see the two of you together because, we all have trauma. We all have family issues. There's a lot of flashbacks and things that kind of go on. So to see the two of you just go at each other. I have a sister, so I know what that's like, and you guys just did such a great job at doing it.
It's like you can push the buttons, but there is like a deep connection and love underneath it, right? Like always. So even when you're, poking, there's a reason for it. There's a need for connection that actually like underlines it all.
Thank you so much for showing a show that has past trauma that people have to work through, family issues that people have to work through, strong women, very different women, mothers, work, just all sorts of aspects of women in this show. And I just think it's really important. Jessica, you do a lot of it. When I interview you and talk to you about it, Elizabeth, you also do a lot of it. And I just think it matters for people of all ages, but specifically for me personally, it matters a lot. So I want to
thank you
so much.
So I'm going to start with you, Corey. Adam. Talk to me about him. He gets involved with two sisters. He's trying to be a good dad. Talk to me about building him and making him, you do a great job of balancing out him to be likable, but also have secrets, but also have made some interesting decisions. So how did you do all of that?
Yeah, as body at the beginning of this murder mystery, I sort of have these competing tasks. I need to be unlikable enough so that everybody is motivated to kill me. I need, everybody needs to have a motive to kill me. Everybody needs to be a suspect. But I need to be likable enough to be the husband of both of these protagonists. Yeah, I mean, I'll leave it to you whether, how successful I was at either of those. But Adam was somebody I felt a great deal of empathy for. I think he's made a lot of mistakes, and I think he's got some real blind spots and maybe certain lack of emotional maturity, but he is trying to surpass his childhood and to give his son a more solid foundation than he had. And I think, unfortunately, his desire to control that leads to violence and estrangement.
Lorraine, you are amazing in the show as well. You're so good. You're seeing like you just like when you enter a room, you just like mark that room. You're so good in it. But I want to ask you about Catherine. So same thing. You know, we meet her, we love her. There's a feeling of a maternal thing, you know, in her to help and to care. And then, you know, as the show keeps going on, as we find out with all human beings, right? We're all layered. We all have multiple things. So talk to me about making Catherine come to life on the screen and her arc kind of a little bit without, I know it's hard without giving anything away, but her arc throughout the season.
Bringing Catherine to life, I keep going back to her complexity. You know, all of the opposites. You know, she's loving, she's vengeful, she's loyal, she will throw you under the bus. She is kind, she is aggressive, she's a predator, she's a mother. So putting all of those pieces together is always fun. And the arc is, you know, you meet her and she is not what she seems. She fiercely loves Chloe, has an agenda with Chloe, is grooming Chloe, and has a very clear path set for Chloe. And then you watch all of the events that come and interrupt that. And what does she do with all of those? The greatest one, of course, is the arrival of Nikki, of course, the murder, number one, which on some level is fairly manageable. I mean, for Catherine, kind of. But that Nikki one is one she was not expecting. And she wasn't expecting Nikki to be Nikki. And so the arc coming from the beginning to the end, by the time we get to the end with Nikki, there's such a great, from just resentment to not quite knowing what to do with her, to ultimately having an odd respect for her. With Chloe, she was a bit of a timid kitty when she starts, and by the time she ends, she's a fierce tiger and quite a formidable. She really has become the Catherine mini-me. And so it was quite a lovely arc. That was one of the things that drew me to the project. And so I hope the audience enjoys watching it as much as I enjoyed doing it.
I want to ask both of you, you know, it's very interesting when there's a show like this and you're getting the pieces together, right? So as viewers, I feel like when we get to watch Nancy and Matt kind of go through it, we're going through it with you. And I think a lot of us that are watching it are arguing how the two of you are arguing. So talk about like creating them and their different points of view and how that relates to us who's watching it going, I agree with her. I agree with him. I agree, you know, as it goes on.
Yeah, I think I would love to take the credit, but it was in the writing. And I think when casting came through and we all met up on set and we started building it, it was so instinctual to just have our points of view and fight for them throughout the end.
Yeah, and I think Olivia and Regina and Elizabeth, all the writers, I think they knew that certainly at times, maybe a lot of the time, that we would be the surrogate for the audience, and that, you know, with Guidry, you get to see that sort of like ball buster and the person who kind of calls out any of the spoiled richness, you know. So, you know, you gotta have a surrogate for that kind of stuff.
And was it fun? I mean, like, it's fun for me to watch it, but was it fun for the two of you to constantly kind of go back and forth? Because, you know, Nancy's kind of a little bit of a tough ball buster. And I feel like, you know, but it's a little more like, no, but I have ideas. Like, listen to you. So
Yeah.
is that fun for you guys? And how did you work that out? Because it's so fun to watch.
Oh, thank you. I had a blast working with Bobby with our characters and our chemistry. I thought we just kind of did it very naturally because, like you said, it's on the page.
Yeah, it was like a puppy trying to like break her down and be warm and fuzzy. And there was moments where I got through,
Yeah,
but
like one hug and that's it. Yeah.
That was my win.
That was really fun. And I thought we had some beautiful, tender moments too, you know, where hearts cracked open a little bit.
And then is there a scene, and I don't want to give anything away, is there a scene that comes to your mind that you're like, this was super hard to film or this was super exciting to film? I can't wait for people to see it.
I mean, every scene was incredible. I think the one, I don't know how much I can give away, but there was the scene that was in the apartment had a lot of the main characters in it. And it was a very defining moment in the script, which was so technical. And it was like a play, right? We were talking about that. And it was incredibly hard to film, but it was also fulfilling, high stakes emotions. It was a brutal scene.
Yeah.
To watch everyone go through it.
sort of very choreographed too, with a lot of characters at once. And, it moved like we were on a stage,
Yeah.
It was fun. And
Yeah.
it's a pivotal scene. So
I'm going to start with Maxwell. Good to see you again. I'm going to talk to you for that 90s show. You were fantastic. This is very different from that character. So I want to bring up Ethan's kind of caught in the crossfire between 3 different adults. How do you get into that mindset? How do you build him to make him relatable and understandable?
I mean, he's completely caught in a crowd. It's such a good way to describe it. I think the way that I kind of approached Ethan, especially in the earlier episodes, is he's very shut down. And the word that I kept coming back to is he's underwater. And he's not really sure where to reach, how to get out. And he's just sort of in that mindset. And he's just watching everything unfold, but he's not really able to get himself to do anything about it and have his voice be heard or anything like that. And so getting into that mindset was a little tough because as a person, I'm always like, all right, what can I do to fix this? What can I, and I was like, Ethan doesn't have that muscle. He's deferring to his parents, and it's sort of this very like rocky state for him. And it was great to kind of see that unfold as the season progressed and see how his relationships with these people evolved, because it was sort of in his eyes, or I guess in mine, he's watching this all unfold to them, and he's almost more of an observer in his own kind of story and his own like what's happening to him. That makes
was
sense.
it helpful for you too, because you had 2 moms, quote unquote, on set? So was that helpful to get
100%.
chaos?
Yeah. Well, and they're both so strong. I mean, it's unbelievable to just be in a room with them, and they would throw things out and try new things on each take. And it was like I had so much to just kind of glean from that and get to bounce off of it that it made my job a lot easier.
So I'm going to ask both of you kind of the same questions. I want to know, talk to me about Michelle and Jake. They're so dynamic. And at first they come off very straightforward. And then, as we all know, the show, there's a lot of stuff that starts coming out as the episodes go on. So talk to me about building them and how you process knowing what's coming in the script, but not showing it to the audience per se as the episodes go on.
My answer is very similar to Max's. I kind of went with, particularly, I got a lot of scenes with Jess, and meeting her was incredible because I was a big fan ahead of time. And when we first met, 2 days after the chemistry test, met on set, she was like, okay, it's a murder mystery. We don't know. There's a lot of secrets. We don't know what's happening. How are you going to play it? I'm going to play it cool. I'm going to be cool. I'm cool. How are you going to? And I said, you're Jessica Biel. I'm going to play it head over heels in love with you. And she was like, okay. That's just cool. I went with that. I went with her being in the midst of all this storm and trying to deal with all these competing forces and grief, and just trying to be there for somebody who, both as a character and as myself, was easy to care about.
Michelle did anticipate it would be kind of a straight road for this particular case because her friend Jake, asked her to take it to represent his family. But immediately it became extremely clear that there was nothing straight or easy about this particular family or the situation. And so as things evolve and unfold, Michelle, brings on everything she has and gets the job done. Let's just put it that way.
I want to know what made The Better Sister stand out as a psychological thriller worth kind of pursuing for you guys?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we both really connected to, obviously, the sister relationship at the heart of it, but also I think this idea of siblings getting different versions of their parent in childhood and how that affects who you become and your conception of your sibling and yourself, particularly when there's addiction at play. I think both Regina and I have experiences in our own families where we had different experiences than our siblings and told different stories about our parents. And so that, on top of all of the amazing twists and turns and how fun the whodunit is, I think that was a thing that we felt like, okay, there's something real here that we want to explore.
Also something for everybody, right? Some people really, really love the mystery and the murder mystery aspect of it. And some people are like, I want a character-driven thing and I want something about family. So, we kind of tried to cover the waterfront a little bit.
Absolutely.
And how do you guys handle or balance the timelines, right? Because we're kind of going forward, backwards. You're seeing a little more here, a little more there. There's kind of flashback stuff happening. So how do you map that out to make it make sense for the viewer? Because I was completely locked in, so I knew exactly what was going on.
Oh, nice.
That makes us so happy. We have a acronym we call PLN, the present linear narrative. So, we always wanted to make sure that we had that incredibly tightly timed out and that every single thing that happened from the first day of our present timeline until the last moment, we really had mapped out. And so we had a on the wall of the offices, we had every single, and then the same thing was true in the past, wanting wanting to make sure that every event that we were referring to, because we refer to them out of order, we encounter them the way that you encounter them when you have memories, which is something comes up and it's from your mid-20s, and then something comes up from when you're 5. And so we really wanted to know at what moment how they occurred chronologically, and then also how we were experiencing them as an audience. So at what moment we're getting which piece of information and how that puzzle fits together. We are crazy people, so we would carry a lot of that in our mind, but it was very important for all of our collaborators to be able to understand similarly. And then the most important, of course, is that our audience felt like they always could trust us as storytellers to know that they were going to understand where they were in time, or if they didn't know where they were in time, the feeling of what they were seeing, how it contributed to what they were learning about, or how it was going to affect what was happening in the present. So it was a team effort, but we had a lot of fun.
The other thing that I really enjoyed about the show, I mean, there's so many things, but the generational trauma, I think it's so important because I feel like a lot of times current characters have trauma and we watch that and they sort through it, but they never talk about the generational. Where did it come from? How did it start? You guys focus a lot on that, especially in the beginning where people might not know what's going really on, but it's very apparent that a lot of it is generational. Why was that important to include here? And really show unresolved feelings from childhood, how they really lead into you becoming an adult.
I don't think that anybody has a life that's compartmentalized. And I think that leads to very flat storytelling, is when they are just who they are in this moment. I mean, we carry our dead with us. We carry our parents, dead or alive, with us at every minute, I feel. And it's a truthful way to sort of get to know people. And for us, it's like, oh my gosh, and how absurd you can be using these certain devices too. It gives us a lot of room to explore when you're doing what we did. I'm speaking cryptically because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say.
No, it's okay. I don't want to give anything away to anybody.
Okay.
No, but I think that's exactly right. We have 3 generations that the audience is seeing on screen, which is Nikki and Chloe and Ethan, and then Nikki and Chloe's parents, and Adam and his mother, and you encounter. So we loved to. It's almost like Pangea, right, where the continents break off from each other and you can see where the cracks are. You can see where they fit together. That's sort of what happens when you meet people's parents or you learn more about where they came from. Oh, all of a sudden that crack, that contour, that makes sense. And we were lucky enough to be able to have that as part of the infrastructure of our storytelling. So we, that was so fun, and we wanted to mine that and make sure it was supporting the mystery both of the present and of the past of all of these characters. And exactly as you said, sort of what are these cycles of generational trauma? How do we break them, or how do we perpetuate them?
I wanted to know for both of you if there was a scene or character that you fought hard to the death for, of something that you wanted in there to keep in the final cut. And what are you most excited about for people to see once the show gets released?
There is a scene in episode 105 where Nikki is at a bar and she encounters certain folks, and it was very important to us in terms of her headspace. It's also a little bit of an homage to a scene in another TV show that's very important to us, even though it's a little bit spectral. It exists sort of a little bit in this liminal space. We really wanted to make sure we had in the show because it felt very important, both to her character and to sort of the larger story we were telling. So I think we fought for that one.
Yeah,
Barfly.
Sure. Yeah, in and out. And we're like, please. I mean, some things are very personal.
Yes. And then what we are most excited for people to see. Oh my God. I think that's performances.
Yes,
the cast is just so incredible and across the board. I mean, it's Jessica and Elizabeth and Kim and Lorraine and Corey and Maxwell. I mean, it's just every single person is so amazing. So I think that's just the joy, from top to bottom. So that's what we can't wait for people to see.
Thank you for listening to Silence on Set podcast. My name is Monica Gleberman. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more interviews to come.